Quality Assured Films.
Welcome back to Quality Assured Films Weekly, Episode 3. I'm Mike, and my pronouns are he and him.
And I'm Jon, and my pronouns are he and him.
What week is it, Jon?
You always ask me that, and it's the May 25th week. It's the week of May 25th, 2020.
That's right. And at this point, we've got 2 weekly episodes under our belt.
Yes.
Which are live on YouTube.
Check them out.
A couple other QA Films housekeeping items. Our 2018 Decade in Review episode is in the bank.
Yes. The end of our 10-year look. Well, 9 years, because, but, it feels good. It's a 9-part series that we just finished. After what, like a 14-part best of 2019? We're up there, man. Episode 81. Check it out right now. Let us know what you think of the whole decade. If you haven't seen the old ones, go back and watch them. You might be confused by the thumbnails because they look similar, but the different years tell you that it's a different episode. So,
thank you for those instructions.
Oh.
I am continuing on with my captioning project. Based on how much work it is, I'm probably looking at doing like maybe 1 episode a month, maybe 2 if I push it.
Yeah.
That turned out to be way bigger of a project than I thought it was going to. You can hear me talk about that a little bit in our last weekly episode if you're interested.
I know, man. What a process.
Quick reminder, we also released last week our official QA Films movie list, which is a Google Doc of every TV show, anime, movie, YouTube channel that we've ever talked about on our show. And I'm going to put the link in the description of this video. And you can also find it on our Facebook page and in the link of our other videos.
Awesome, man. I
also want to plug our email again, which you can send us at qualityassuredfilms@gmail.com. And that Google Doc has been a long time in the making, so I wanted to make sure it got out there early.
Yeah, I like how you cleaned it up too. In fact, I featured it when you mentioned it in our 2018 episode, so you get kind of a view of what it looks like.
Awesome. Let's move on to our first segment, the news.
I brought it! Some papers.
Nice. I'm so proud.
The news. Let's do it. What's in the news, Mike? Entertainment news.
I am going to, although I stopped you from talking about real stuff last time, which I'm sorry for doing that, I did want to talk about a few, 3 or more real things that I thought were worth mentioning.
Okay.
So one of them is I talked about our Pennsylvania primary election. The deadline has now passed to apply for the mail-in ballot. But if you did it in time, and you got your ballot or you're waiting for your ballot, that must be received by the county office by 8 p.m. Eastern on the 2nd of June, which is this coming Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
So a deadline to look out for.
Yep.
And I wanted to briefly just say that George Floyd, his death in Minneapolis, deserves justice.
Yep. I was going to mention that too.
Yeah. I think maybe I would have been afraid to say so in a previous life, but I think it's long past time that we evaluate the role of the police in our society.
100% agree. Yep.
In a little bit of lighter news, no pun intended, SpaceX launched their first manned space flight maybe an hour ago at the time of this recording.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Which is the first I believe is the first manned space flight since NASA shut down the space program in 2011 in Florida. It feels kind of weird that it's a private company doing this who want to go exploit the reaches of space, but still a occasion to mark nonetheless.
Yeah, I was gonna say it definitely sounds like we're playing into the whole future, the dystopian future, and having a corporation, try to go up there. So, yay!
Wayland Yutani in the making.
Oh, I know that reference.
Cue the Captain America meme.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. Had to get some real stuff out there quick. Do you have any real stuff?
Well, I have the same thing about George Floyd. That's insane. Another Seinfeld member we lost. Another actor that passed away. I believe it was a day or two ago. Richard Hurd, who played George's boss. He played Mr. Wilhelm. When George was working at the Yankees, George Steinbrenner was the big guy, but he was like the guy right below it, and he just passed away. I mean, granted, not the virus, thankfully. And you don't have to look it up this time, Mike. It is.
I have a Google window tab open at all times, ready to look things up here.
Nice. No, it was cancer. The fucking cancer. 87 though, so at least he had a long life. So, R.I.P. I do the Serenity Now button because it's Seinfeld related, but it's way over there. So.
R.I.P. All right, moving on to entertainment news. A couple of articles that I read off of IO9, which was normally my go-to site. There's some fucked up stuff going on with Gawker's executives right now, but we'll see how that pans out. But anyway, I mentioned last week that we're gonna see Zack Snyder's Justice League. It has officially been named Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yep. There was no real Snyder cut. That did not exist, as everyone speculated, because he unfortunately had to leave production halfway through.
Yeah.
Due to like a personal tragedy.
Yep. And
so there was no fully Snyder version of that film, like just sitting somewhere waiting to be released. That didn't exist. What I read today was that it's not coming out until next year, and they are spending an exorbitant. Is that the money? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Exorbitant.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're spending a fuck ton of cash to make this thing. It kind of seems like, I don't know if they might do it with CG.
Ooh.
And the quote from one of the Warner I don't know if it was Warner executive or HBO executive, because it's coming out on their new service. The quote was, "I wish it was only $30 million to make." Meaning,
yeah,
they're spending much more than $30 million to make this thing.
Even though it's already made, but I know what you're saying. Like, they have to go back and move stuff around. Oh, God, how's that going to work? Are they going to un-CGI his mustache? I'd rather have the mustache. Well, I'll take the mustache.
We already fixed that problem.
We did.
Pay us the 30 mil.
I'm just not jumping out of another airplane for it.
What do you got?
I have, well, this is entertainment news, so we should probably mention, which we talked about in our 2018 end of decade review, because Love, Simon came up. You mentioned that Disney Plus passed on the Love, Simon series because it wasn't family friendly, because there's a gay person. Like, come on. So the updated news I just heard, and as of today, I believe, well, Wednesday, there's now a new official trailer for it. It's called Love Richard? Wait, no. Hang on, sorry. Love Victor. And it's on Hulu now. And I don't know exactly when it's coming out. It's soon, though. But it's cool. It's going to be a 10-part series based loosely, or possibly a sequel, if you will. Same high school as Simon, and yeah, dealing with kind of figuring out how to come out to everyone. So some good news, but also fuck Disney.
Yeah. Well put. I also read that the Dark Tower TV show, which was going to be at Amazon, died. It was canceled. So it was going to be a prequel from the executive producer of The Walking Dead, whose name was Glenn Mazzara, I think.
I was going to say, who was looking for that anymore, especially after the bomb with the Idris Elba film?
I was interested because I only read the first book. I know it's a huge series of books, but I really liked that book. There was also a comic book adaptation, which, of course, I read. And I really like the world that story takes place in. I think it's really interesting. The whole gunslinger in a... I don't know if this is a spoiler, but a cross-dimensional plane of existence.
Right.
And anyway, I thought that had a lot of promise. And so I was looking forward to the movie, and I was especially looking forward to the show, because the show obviously would have more time to get into the world building, which I thought was the coolest part. And apparently, after the movie bombed, they were still going to proceed with the pilot to the point where they filmed one. And it wasn't until some point last year that they decided to pass on it. So I think the movie was 2018, maybe.
I think so.
And they were still going through to 2019, and then at some point last year they canceled it. But maybe someday we'll get to see the pilot. But it's kind of sad that didn't work out.
Yeah, I'd like somebody to handle it properly. I mean, there's so much material there. You can literally have, 9 films if you wanted?
At the same time, I haven't watched Walking Dead since season 2 or 3, so maybe that's for the best.
I still watch it. I don't know why, but I do.
Me either. Anything else for entertainment news that you have?
Well, I don't know if this was going to be something you mentioned later on, but remember the revival of a specific show that you said was amazing? Netflix, just Tuca and Birdie.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
They're bringing it back. I know you're talking about how good it was, and then after we had that episode, it was a catch-up episode, I think. They ended up canceling it, and we're like, oh, come on. But yeah, the news this week was that it's coming back.
I'm so freaking excited for that, because was that 2019?
Yeah, 2019 catch-up.
That was one of my favorite shows from last year, and I was so sad. I think it was right around the time we released the episode. It might be in the episode that we show the article that Netflix canceled it.
Yeah.
I was so bummed about that. So Lisa Hannah-Walt, the creator, announced on Twitter that it's coming back to Adult Swim for a second season.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited.
Oh, that's right. It was Adult Swim, not Netflix. Okay, that makes sense.
The first season's on Netflix. They canceled it. Now Adult Swim picked it up.
Good for Adult Swim. See? It doesn't have to be Netflix saving everything, people. Come on. I think that might be all I have for entertainment news. Actually, this one might go back to the reel. Were you not super excited a couple days ago when they announced that they may have found proof that there was a parallel universe in Antarctica? They found these particles or whatever.
What? I didn't hear about this.
Oh, I mean, since then they've now clarified that the particles are called neutrinos, which are tiny, high-energy cosmic particles.
Neutrinos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the ability to they call it ghostly particles, because they can go through material without changing themselves or the material. But at the time when they first discovered it, back, what was this, Monday or Tuesday, they were saying scientists in the Antarctic may have found proof of a parallel universe, which I was like, this is it. This is proof. We're in it right now.
We're in the dumbest timeline.
Yes. But no, sadly, it's been debunked. So there's no excuse for all this.
Damn it.
That's all I got.
Nice. That wraps up the news. Let's move on to other topics. Probably need to come up with a name for whatever this is.
Yeah. Mixed.
Yeah. On a serious note, not too serious. If I might offer some unsolicited advice, I found myself looking back at old emails recently. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. It's a terrible idea. Avoid at all costs.
Are you looking at old emails that you sent or old emails?
Yes. old emails that I sent, old emails that I received. Don't do it. It's a trap.
Oh my god, I won't.
Kind of in tandem with that. If you're up to it, say stuff to the people in your life while you still can. Okay, that's all for the serious stuff. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, what have I been up to, man? Well, as we know, Adobe Premiere is not very reliable. And I want to take people behind the scenes for a moment here and put you in my shoes. When I finished the Decade series that we talked about earlier, it was all ready to go. I went to export it, and Adobe kept crashing. And I've dealt with Adobe crashing many a times. I've had to upgrade my equipment and all that just for it to run smoothly. I was freaking out, man, because I didn't know what to do. No matter what I did, clearing cache, restarting, all that, it wasn't working. And I was like, this is our last episode of the Decade. Like, how do I... Thank goodness for time travel, I guess, if you will. Going back to an older version of it ended up resolving the issue. But if ever... Adobe.
So parallel universes do exist.
You're damn right. You're damn right. And Adobe sucks in all of them. But yeah, thankfully it's resolved as of now. So
excellent. Thank you for enduring that.
Of course. What do you got?
Relating to another of our past episodes, at some point we talked about Hannah Gadsby and her special Nanette. She has a new special out that's called Douglas. I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my to watch list.
Okay.
So just calling that out. I know a few people watched and enjoyed that from our past episode. So I'm looking forward to that.
Speaking of
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, because it's a perfect thing to bounce right off of specials. I finally watched Jerry Seinfeld's 23 Hours to Kill stand-up special that just came out at the beginning of this month. And, dude, 90%... First of all, it was hilarious, but 90% of it, he's doing the Jerry voice when he's screaming like this. Kramer! Like, every joke, he's just yelling. He's like, what are you doing? Your little cell phone! I love it. I love it.
That sounds awful, John.
No, he was really good, and he didn't, in the past he sometimes sounds like, an older dude that's complaining about things that don't bother us, but no, this one, I feel like he's stuck pretty well to being hilarious. Not only that, he had a great interview on Howard Stern where he revealed he has a book coming out in October called Is This Anything? Which I think is perfect because he's notoriously known for, like, going, oh well, like, about life, like, I mean, obviously if you have a lot of money, maybe it's easier to do that. But still, his outlook on life is, whatever. Is this anything? Don't sweat the small stuff, if you will. But from this octave.
I always liked he had a comment one time where he was talking about his writing with what's his name? Larry David. And he would say whenever he felt really stressed out about writing Seinfeld, he would keep a poster of the solar system in front of his writing desk to remind him of the scale of the universe, and on that scale he was nothing. That would help him feel better. So I kind of like that angle, but I don't really agree with, like, it's like the inverse of that is to just be like, well, nothing matters, and it's like, that's a stretch.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean. Yeah.
Speaking of cynicism, I've caught up on Rick and Morty.
Yes. Oh, I have not watched the most latest episode where he has a whole family adventure, but up to that, I'm all caught up. I love it, man. It's so fucking hilarious. And
I hate it.
No, because it's too self-aware, or what? I don't know. I feel like that's a positive. Right?
I think that's part of it, but it feels like they know that they were shitty, which is good, but then every joke is about how they know that they were shitty, and it's doubling down on every character is so unlikable. And they're like, I know in interviews and stuff, they're like, well, you're supposed to, like, you're not supposed to relate to Rick. Like, you're supposed to think he sucks. And it's like, well, if I'm just watching a show where every character sucks, what the fuck am I doing with my time? I want to watch a show where I like the characters.
Yeah.
It was just such a downer for me catching up on those episodes because I did not get any joy from them. And there was one joke at the post-credits scene of the episode you haven't seen yet that actually made me laugh. But it's like 30 seconds out of an hour, 2 hours, whatever.
I mean, I know what you mean about them all being like not likable. They definitely do kind of go out of their way. Even Morty, at least in the past, we could kind of relate with Morty a little, and now it's just like, oh, Rick, I'm a piece of shit. Everybody, yeah. I just, it's so clever, the writing. It's like, oh, speaking of them, that other show I saw the pilot episode of Solar Opposites, I think it's called, the one on Hulu.
Oh, from Justin Roiland,
right? And it's the show. It's literally Rick and Morty. Just he's a blue alien instead of Rick. And then you got Thomas Middleditch playing the son. Same kind of joke, same kind of cynicism, and so you probably won't enjoy it.
Sounds like it's not for me. Yeah, I think maybe this franchise is not for me anymore.
Sounds like we might be solar opposites. Oh, man.
A show I really love is She-Ra.
Ooh, yes.
I mentioned in our last weekly that new episodes are out, and I watched a bunch of them. Haven't finished the whole season yet, so I'll probably talk about it on our show if we do another TV episode at some point, after having seen the whole thing. But so far, I think it's a really interesting redemption story. I won't spoil anything. It's really refreshing to watch an action adventure show that I know is written by women. And through that lens, we get to have an action adventure show that's extremely inclusive. So it has characters of many different body types. I may have talked about this back when I first talked about She-Ra, but shows like Steven Universe, which I also really like, put an emphasis on being in touch with your emotions. And so we get to see characters have such a broader range on the emotional spectrum. Also, the costumes and fashion design on this show are so good. Multiple costume changes, sometimes per episode, which I think is impressive. And it's a maybe not so subtle commentary on what a healthy ideal of being powerful looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go too much more into that until later, but I think all of those things are so subtle, and those things make me think it's not like they address them out loud in the show. They just are part of the show, and it makes me think we could just have this all the time. It's not hard to do this.
Yeah.
Shows could just be good. It's possible to have a good, inclusive show. We just need to smash the patriarchy for it to happen.
Right, exactly.
So there's my little catch up on She-Ra after having watched like probably halfway through the new season.
That's awesome. Then I have a really, really, really great show that I want to recommend you. Same deal, created by women, written by women, starring women. It's called Dead to Me. It's in its second season on Netflix. It's Christina Applegate, Linda Cardellina. What is her name? The one that played Velma in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It's like
Okay, here we go.
Cardellini, I think.
See, I knew I was going to need this. Cardellini? Judy Cardellini.
Linda. Who's Judy?
Oh, her character's Judy. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yep. But no. Dude.
Linda Cardellini.
See, I was great. I was great.
You were right.
And we also have our buddy James Marsden in there too. He plays a pretty big role in there. But the show itself it gives me the vibe of Weeds, where like if you were a fan of Weeds back when it was on, especially in the early seasons, very funny writing, very like powerful characters, and like a mix between feeling like absolute humor and then absolute like dark and just down. 'Cause, I mean, the whole story revolves around this woman who loses her fiance or her husband. I'm sorry. He's a runner and he gets hit by a car, and then the two of them befriend each other at like kind of a you know. I'll save all the details for the episode, but I figured you'd probably like that one because there was an article I just read about it from Liz Feldman, who created it. She's a writer. She's the creator. They have directors that are all women. And she's even said in the article, having women write for women, especially comedies, it's what we need. And that show is proof enough. It's like 10 episodes per season. There's 2 seasons. I'm laughing my ass off. I'm feeling stuff. Even Christine Applegate won Outstanding Lead Actress at the Emmys this past year. So it's really worth checking out. Dead to Me. Not to be confused with Dead Like Me, which was also a great show.
I'm going to have to check that show out. As I just looked it up here, I see that Will Ferrell and Adam McKay executive produced this show.
Yep. Yeah, they do a lot of stuff like that.
That's interesting because they also produced Hustlers, which was a movie we talked about end of last year.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's so cool.
The last thing that I had to talk about, I guess in retrospect, all the things I had to talk about were animation. But I watched a newish animated movie from the DC universe, which was the Justice League versus the Fatal Five. Here's the segment no one will care about.
Beginning.
Yeah. This was a movie that was kind of like it was in the same universe as the old Justice League Unlimited show, which was my favorite representation of the Justice League and the DC universe so far. So Kevin Conroy, Susan Eisenberg, and George Newbern come back as Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman like they were in the show and through all those animated shows as we were growing up.
Wow. And
the thing that I thought was impressive about this movie, the things that I liked about it, were we have the Green Lantern in this movie is a new character. Her name is Jessica Cruz. She's a person of color. She's Mexican-American and Honduran-American. And the thing that I thought was really impressive about this movie was that it showed, surprisingly, superheroes that live with mental illnesses. And it shows us, for I think the first time that I can at least remember, a superhero going to therapy, talking with the therapist.
Wow.
Dealing with some intense trauma and like the trauma that their jobs inflict. Unfortunately, I think it still treats its women poorly. One of the main character, it kind of falls into that trope of like one of the characters living with mental illness has to like sacrifice themselves. Like they don't get to live the happy ending, which I think kind of sucks. That's kind of a trope.
Yeah.
The actual story of the movie was kind of lame. They kind of tried to make it bigger than it really was. They tried to have this personal story and world-ending stakes, and I don't really think it needed that. So that part didn't really work for me. But also surprisingly, and I don't really know if this was intentional or not, but certainly some of the things that happen in the movie show superheroes and the Justice League as kind of like the fascist arm of the state. And I was not expecting that.
Oh
I was like, wow, we're saying some stuff here. And then I was like, do they mean to say that, or do they know they're saying that?
Oh, man.
So I was excited by that because that's interesting. But and it didn't. It's not like it really went into that. But the tech, it was there. Subtext was there. So that was kind of cool. I was not expecting that from this nostalgia trip from the JLU. It had all the old animated Batman theme. It had the animated Superman theme and the Justice League theme. Like they brought them all back, and
Wow.
and then all of a sudden we had some interesting social commentary, and I was like, oh. That's exciting. More like that, please. No more of these crappy, most of the other, I've said this before, but most of those other DC animated films, once they started putting them all into the same universe, I was not a fan. And I talked about that a little bit I talked about that Flashpoint movie in one of our, I think it was in our Decade series. I talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you can see what I have to say about it there. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Justice League versus the Fatal Five.
Thank you for tuning back in, everyone else. No, it was good. Oh, I don't even... What else do I have? The only thing I have is just today is the release... Today, as in the day this episode came out, which is Friday, is the release of Space Force. Space Force, the creators of The Office and Parks and Rec, are reunited with Mr. Michael Scott himself. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I haven't watched any of it yet, obviously, because it's not really Friday right this moment.
And more art imitating life, imitating art.
Yep, exactly. You got anything else on this wondrous week of items? That's the new name of it. That's the new name of it. Our items, our week's items.
That's it for me.
Same here, man.
Sweet. So we will move into the outro. I guess I don't need to robotically announce all of the segments.
No worries.
Subscribe.
Yes. Do it. Don't just listen to these words and not. Because that's what you're doing. Not all of you, but I see you.
Creepy.
Not only that, like Mike mentioned at the top of the hour, or the top of the episode, send us some feedback through our email. Or comment on our videos. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on, what you do or don't like about us. And please be honest.
I don't want to hear that.
Just kidding.
I don't want to hear what you don't like. You can tell us what you like, though.
Also follow us on Instagram. We constantly have stuff coming out. That's QA_films. We have our Facebook, as you mentioned earlier, too, which is Quality Assured Films. What am I forgetting?
Did you mention the email?
I did.
I'm going to say it again.
Say it again.
qualityassuredfilms@gmail.com.
And more importantly, above all, the people, the volunteers, the medical workers, my sister, all those people on the front lines right now that are helping during this pandemic. Thank you so much for everything you continue to do day in and day out. And we on our ends will do whatever we can to make your lives easier, because you are definitely making ours easier. So thank you. And you deserve to be paid accordingly. I almost forgot that important.
Hell yeah. Justice for George Floyd.
Yeah. Like even the next day with the way the cops handled the protests. Like, I'm sorry, we have a society where fucking armed to the teeth motherfuckers of white can walk up to cops in their face and be like, motherfucker, nothing, no tear gas, nothing. But we live in a society where you're gonna fucking spray shit on people and literally treat it like it's a fucking riot.
Stay safe. Stay inside if you can. Wear your masks. See you next week.
I'm John.
I'm Mike.
And we are
Quality Assured Films. Peace.
Peace out.